actually pretty loud. What is up? Welcome to Every Single Guitars, where the goal of this channel is to review every single guitar ever made. Today I have a interesting guitar. I don't consider it a traditional guitar because it doesn't look traditional, but it does sound like a guitar. Today I have a 2002 Martin 00 CXAE, 00 CXAE Grand Concert. So what I mean by it doesn't look like a traditional guitar is it's black. A guitar is not black. A guitar is a wood color. Maple, walnut, Sitka, rosewood, etc. But this is just straight up black, including the headstock. So I have seen these types of Martin models, not recently, because I believe the black Martins are a pretty old series, I believe. I don't know the exact year. If this is a 2002, then I'm assuming that, the black Martins came out, 5-10 plus years ago. I have seen a Dreadnought type black Martin with a cutaway, and it had an electronic pickup. Actually, the first time I've seen it was when I was in high school. I used to listen to an artist called AJ Raphael, and he had a black Martin that he used to play in some of his songs. I'll probably link a video or something, but I think that was the first time I seen a black Martin, and I was like, that's pretty interesting, but it sounds good. From the 1 hour of guitar playing that I have played on this guitar, I really enjoyed playing with this guitar, actually. Even though it's not a traditional guitar per se, just strictly from a guitar and instrument standpoint, I was very impressed with this guitar. So right off the bat, this guitar is really light. I say the neck is twice the weight of the body, kind of like an SG. So if I place it on my lap, it falls down like this very easily because there's a lot of weight on the headstock and neck area. And I think it's because this isn't wood. I don't know what material they use. I did some research before buying this guitar, and they said this was a laminate, but I always thought a laminate was like an inferior wood. This just straight up feels like plastic. Like, not a poor quality plastic, because I don't think a guitar would sound good if it's poor quality, but I don't know what exact material this is. It definitely doesn't feel like wood. It almost feels like the top of a guitar case, kind of like this. It's like the same texture as this. The back of the neck, it's wood, but it doesn't look like, it looks like they pressed several layers of wood, like really compact, and tried to make the neck shape with a bunch of woods just pressed together. That's the vibe I'm getting, because you can clearly see the lines on the back of the neck. It doesn't look like a regular guitar neck. It looks like a bunch of small thin layers of wood just literally pressed together. The fretboard is no inlay. It's a blank fretboard, which I actually do like. I reviewed a 2011 Gibson Les Paul Morte, Gothic Mort, and that also had no inlays on the fretboard, giving it kind of a clean look. Overall, this guitar is just really small. It's really thin for an acoustic guitar, and it's really light. The neck is clearly the highest quality part of this guitar. I can feel it. It's a really slim body neck with a pickup, a stock pickup attached. Even though it looks kind of cheap, when I plugged it into an amp, dude, this guitar actually sounded excellent amplified, which really surprised me. But at the same time, this is Martin is probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, acoustic guitar brand ever. I don't think, just because they have, laminate body with like this cheap plastic pickguard, just because of those reasons, I don't think they're gonna release a subpar quality guitar. That just wouldn't make sense for their brand. When I did see the black Martins come out, including this one, I was pretty surprised because, like I said, they're probably one of the oldest acoustic, or maybe just instrument manufacturers ever, 1833. That's really old. Because of that history, I always assumed that they would stick to more of a traditional, guitar standpoint. kind of like all the guitar models they release now. It's very conservative, it's very original. They don't really stray too far away from how the original Martins looked. But then all of a sudden, they make this black, like plastic-ish feeling guitar with a black headstock. A pretty drastic change, you know, I feel like, in their mentality of how they make guitars. So I thought that was a pretty interesting thing to do for Martin. But at the same time, even though it does not give me a Martin feel, that traditional Martin feel, just in terms of the tone and how a guitar is supposed to sound and how a guitar is supposed to feel and play, dude, this guitar is actually very, very good. Surprisingly very good. And I'll show you what it sounds like. Guitar is actually pretty loud considering the fact on how small it is and how light, and you know, the fact that it's not even real wood. I mean, if I was blindfolded on a blind test, you couldn't even probably tell that this was not a wood guitar. I mean, assuming that you didn't like feel the texture of the body or anything. If you just played it, dude, to be honest, this sounds better than some wood guitars that I've played. I'm really curious what this is. I mean, they say on the specs, on the Martin website, the specs, they say it's a laminate, but you know, like I've said, I have owned a handful of laminate guitars, and the texture is not, this is not a laminate texture that I feel. This is like straight up like kind of like this, you know, like I mean, there's a little difference, but the closest thing it feels like of this body is to this. So that's really weird. Like, I don't know what they did. You know, if you're just looking for a guitar to play the guitar and you're not like a, you know, like a wood master, you know, like looking at the grains of the wood and not buying the guitar if the guitar doesn't look a certain way, because I have met people like that. If you're just like looking for a guitar to play the guitar, dude, this is an excellent guitar to buy, considering it's a Martin, which is a pretty expensive brand to purchase. I mean, they priced this, I actually don't know the retail price of this because, you know, this isn't a recent release, but I'm assuming it's less than 900. You know, to be honest, for 900, that's pretty expensive for this quality, but it sounds good. I'm like really curious what material this is. Overall, tone, dude, tone I give this like an 8.5. Build, the build is good. The neck build is really good. But I mean, this is pretty solid too, the body, but just because it's so light, it kind of doesn't give me a firm feeling overall. I feel like if I hold the guitar like this for a minute, this part, you know, the weight of the neck may drag it down and cause some like breaks to form. But I mean, who holds a guitar like this? That doesn't make any sense, you know? But dude, just from a tone perspective, this guitar sounds surprisingly Very, very good. But the build, the body, like I said, I don't know what material this is, but if I went like that to like a solid piece of like wall or something, I'm pretty sure this will break. But you know, who does that to a instrument? So the build, I'll probably give like a 7 out of 10. Even though like the electronics look cheap, just from an aesthetics point of view, like the Fishman, I'm not a big fan of pickups that are visible like this. You know, like I said, just purely from a tone perspective, this guitar sounds very good, and the neck feels of very high quality as well. Pretty unique Martin, 2002 00 CXAE Grand Concert. This actually says made in USA, but when I did the research online, they said this was made in Mexico. So I don't know. I don't know if it's made in USA or Mexico, but regardless, this is a pretty good guitar, or a guitar.